People living our lives. We're people, just people, and we're glad to be alive.
Welcome to We're People First, the Jeff Moyer Show. Here's Christy Moyer.
Welcome, everybody. We are so happy that you are here with us today, especially since we changed our day from Saturday to Thursday. And I'm going to have Jeff welcome.
And indeed, not only welcome all of you who are watching live, but for the 3,000 people that catch this after the fact. And I'll talk to you in a moment about how in one way watching it later is superior.
Yes, well, we have added a wonderful person that is our interpreter. Her name is Kira Beck-Ort, and she is a nationally certified American Sign Language interpreter. And she, she does artistic interpreting, and that's what we were so excited about. She's been working as an interpreter for 13 years, and she's born and raised in Kentucky, and she is in Kentucky at the moment. She has a parent with a disability, and she also is a person who lives with a chronic pain disorder herself. So Kira is passionate about the rights and accessibility for people of the disabled community. So welcome, Kira.
Kara, we have been waiting for you since the show began, and it was only because I did a performance with the Berkeley Women's Theater Collective, Disabled Theater, Women with Disabilities Theater Collective, Rye Cripps. They did a show called Occupy about the 504 demonstration, for which I played, and Kara was interpreting. And Christy was so impressed with her artistic interpretation that we asked if we could hire her on the spot, which is what we did. Artistic interpreting is different than standard ASL interpreting because you're interpreting music or a theater or poetry, and you put your whole body, your whole heart intelligence into the interpretation. I've worked as a performer with ASL, American Sign Language interpreters, who were artistic interpreters, and it is a particular art form, and we are so entirely pleased, jumping out of our skin happy, to meet Kira Beck. So thanks again for being with us, Kira.
Well, I'm going to do a short audio description of ourselves and Kira. So I have done the studio before. So we are again in Jeff's studio in San Diego, California. And Jeff has on a shirt that's got kind of a silver background, and there is a small pattern within that shirt, and he's got a silver bow tie. And I have a maroon under cami, and then a silver and flower print jacket. And Kira, beautiful Kira, is sitting in a chair. Behind her is a blue background, and she has black on, and you can see how her face is so visible. She's got bright red lipstick on, and her hair is pulled back, so you can see her face and her hands so beautifully.
So, another aspect about accessibility that I wanted to mention is open captioning. Now, just a word on accuracy of language. The captioning that you see under your TV screen these days, which you can turn on and off at the click of a button, I don't know how you do it. How do you do it? Something on the screen you touch?
Yeah, you go down and you click on to open it or not.
Okay. That is actually, it's truly open captioning because it doesn't require a special receiver to receive it. In the old days, before it was part of broadcast television and our show, it was something that you required a special receiver to access. That was called closed captioning. Open captioning means no special equipment required. However, the way that YouTube works, captioning is irregular in terms of where it appears on the screen. It can cut off our heads or block what's at the bottom of the screen or come in at the side. There also can be a quite long delay. And if you are relying on captioning to catch all the words because of a hearing impairment, then we recommend that you watch the show in its recorded form. Then YouTube's application comes in perfectly and you see the open captioning in real time. So there you have that. We've tried to find an alternative, and to date we haven't been successful in finding a better way to do it.
But we keep trying, and we will keep trying till we figure it out. So, Jeff, we're ending the month of May now. And so we're going to wrap up some things that we talked about, and also happened in May.
Right.
So for the people that were not here last show, we did a theme of Mother's Day.
And mothering.
And you wanted to add some things, didn't you?
I did. After the fact, I read a podcast. I say read a podcast because I read with my ears. So I listened to a podcast, but I was reading it. And as I was reading it, I learned that Mother's Day, although established by a woman named Anna Jarvis in honor of her own mother, and by the way, the first time that Mother's Day was celebrated in the U.S., she sent 500 white carnations to her church to be passed out to mothers in the congregation. Those carnations cost $2.50, half a penny each. And the Floral Association got hold of the idea, and by the time they were on the bandwagon, they had decided carnations could sell for 15 cents each. So an increase of 300%, 3,000% by virtue of their involvement. They also co-opted the idea and declared it as their own because they spelled Mother's Day with the plural possessive, S apostrophe, as opposed to apostrophe S, which Anna Jarvis had done in recognition of her mother. So she had a fight with not only the floral, what we call a big floral.
Big floral, yeah.
But also the Congress, because the Congress also said they established Mother's Day after much advocacy by Anna Jarvis. So she became quite irritated with the way that the holiday had been commercialized. And there was one story I read about. She was in a hotel dining room and saw a Mother's Day salad on the menu, which she ordered, and when it arrived, she threw it on the floor in protest. So she was known as a bit of a crank in her later years, and sadly, she did die penniless and in real crisis. Yeah. But the woman who established Mother's Day deserves the credit, Anna Jarvis. But it goes back to Mother's Sunday, which was celebrated beginning in the English Church in the 17th century and going back to Greek and Roman times when the Mother Goddess was celebrated.
Exactly. And also in this month, we're not going to see you folks again until June, so we're trying to wrap May up. It is coming up Memorial Day.
It is, and we have so much to say about Memorial Day. The one thing I want to say is that since today in the U.S., and we know this show goes out internationally, but since we're broadcasting from the United States military is now completely voluntary. And I'm proud to say that I have several members of my family who are currently serving. And it's become a practice for many people to see a man or woman in uniform and say, thank you for your service. And certainly for people who put their lives on the line to protect the rest of us, whether through law enforcement or the military, they certainly do deserve our heartfelt thanks. But let's think about for a moment also the other people who give selflessly to community by virtue of their choice of career. Every teacher, social worker, nurse's aide, the people who keep us living in our homes independently or allow us to live in homes independently after institutionalization. All those people deserve our thanks as well because they help make the world go round through their selfless service. So, honey,
Yes.
thank you for 50 years of service to special education. Christy was a special educator
Jeff.
for 50 years. And thank you for your service to me to keep me independent. If it weren't for my wife, I would certainly be living in an assisted living facility. It's true.
Well, thank you again. I appreciate that. And especially now that we're seeing COVID in the rearview mirror, let's hope. But all of those healthcare workers and the doctors and the nurses that work tirelessly
Absolutely.
to protect us through this pandemic. Also, then, we also had a Teacher Appreciation Day in May, and I can remember the month of May being Teacher Appreciation Month. So I want to highlight some things that you've done to honor teachers. You have a song called Reflections, and that's available as an MP3, correct?
It's available in the cloud as a free download. All you have to say to your smart speaker is play Reflections by Jeff Moyer. And your smart speaker is smart, but not that smart. And you have to have maybe repeat it several times for it to figure out that there is an artist named Jeff Moyer in a song called Reflections. But ask for it, pull it down, and play it for your teacher if you're a student or a parent of a student. It's a good way to say to a teacher, thank you, a song that speaks specifically to the goodness, work, vitality, and advocacy of teachers.
Also, Jeff wrote a chapter in his book called Grit about a teacher that he loved and really helped him a lot. Tell us about her, honey.
Mrs. Delaney was my 8th and 9th grade French teacher, and she saw me struggling with my magnifying glass one of the first days in class. She asked to see me outside. She asked if it was painful for me to read, which it was. No one had ever asked me that before. She asked if there was such a thing as a large print typewriter or a large print textbook. I said my mother had checked and there were none.
Now, I'm going to interrupt you because I don't want you to give it all away, because you're going to read a part of that in September.
Okay.
Okay.
So well, suffice to say that Mrs. Delaney went over the top for me as a regular old teacher, helping this student who was included in the mainstream classroom.
That is so fantastic of you to honor teachers, and I know you've done conferences and things where you've been able to share that with a large amount of teachers. So let's see if I've covered everything for May. I believe I have.
Oh, but today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And I haven't been able to track down according to whom, but there is a Global Awareness Day, Global Accessibility Awareness Day.org. I believe that's what it is, website, but if you Google global.
I think our associate producer has connected it to Microsoft in some way, so we'll have to do some research. And good to know that as we find things out like this after the show, Jeff writes about it in his blog, and you can go to his website and see his blogs, following up on what?
Well, jeffmoyer.com has got a lot of new features. We're under new management. The producer of the show, the impeccable Bill Mallon, is also my webmaster and has redesigned the website. And we now have, if you go to jeffmoyer.com, you can view the show through the website. We're working to make it fully accessible, and we're well on the way. And there's a new store where you can buy Grit or any of the songs that I play on the show. And there was something else I wanted to say about the website. Did I cover it all?
I think so, but if you think about it, you can interrupt. So I think we're about ready to move along.
Okay. So thank you for your service, people in the service, and all of you who've devoted your life and do devote your life to the betterment of the human condition.
People First Consciousness.
Okay, People First Consciousness. Today the topic is disability, broadly. Often I hear people say, well, everybody has a disability. No, everybody does not have a disability. The World Bank, who has studied this matter globally, says that 1 billion people on the planet, that's 13% of us, live with a disability. And to say that everyone has a disability, for example, you might hear someone say, everyone has a disability. I'm bad in math. That's my disability. No, it could be that you're, as we know, we have different areas of intelligence: musical intelligence, spatial intelligence, language intelligence, mathematical intelligence. You might have an intelligent level that is below par in math, but it doesn't mean that you have a disability. It just means that you're weak in one subject area. However, there is so much to say about disability, first of all, with just the definition of it. And I'm going to talk about my own eyes as an exemplar here. The World Health Organization in 1980 came up with different articulated definitions that there's a 207-page report that details. Let's begin with disease. I had a severe case of measles when I was 5 years old, a disease. That triggered the genetic predisposition for the disease cone rod dystrophy, one in the family of retinitis pigmentosa, a disease process, a blinding condition of the retina. Diseases can create disorders. For example, if I look at you, you're going to see that my right eye pulls to the right, because growing up I had noticed central vision was lost very early. So the brain compensated by pulling over to pull in peripheral vision. That's a disorder of the eye. The eye is operating in a way that is different than the norm. Okay, the fact that I had diminished retinal life meant that I developed an impairment to my vision. Most people who have impairment to their vision wear glasses, which corrects that impairment and brings their vision to normal. However, a disabling condition of the eye means that you cannot have your vision corrected with normal lenses. And that can be near normal, like 20/40, with which you can even get a driver's license, all the way down to total blindness. And all disabling conditions work like this. Most people have the most mild form of the disability. As you get down deeper and deeper into the disabling condition, for example, from near normal to total blindness, you get fewer and fewer people. So the majority of people with any disabling condition have a mild form of it. And those of us with severe forms of any disability are in a minority within that disabling condition. Okay, so disability. Handicap is the way that interferes the barriers to functioning in whatever regard. So if I am in a building that does not have audible signs, and we'll talk about that at a later show, remote infrared audible signs, then that building is a handicapping place for me because I can't read the signs. if it had the right technology, I would not have a barrier to sign reading. Similarly, if I walk into a building and there are stairs, if I'm in my wheelchair, well, that building is a handicapping environment for me because I can't access other floors. If I have a ramp or elevator, however, now that handicapping condition is gone. So people have disabilities, situations create handicaps. And the largest handicap that people can face is attitudinal barriers. When people look at other people with disabilities and project a stigma onto them. For example, with my eye disorder when I was a child, I was ridiculed because of that. So the barrier to my inclusion in the social group was other people's attitude about my disability. There was once a bumper sticker that was read to me that said, "The greatest handicap a person with a disability has may be you." Rather, if we say maybe your attitude, and attitudes can change. And we can also learn ignorance is not a disability. Ignorance is the lack of the light of education. I wear my Berkeley ring with pride. It has the Berkeley symbol on it, which is a torch over an open book, the light of knowledge. And that's what we try to do through this show, through many means, is to create new understanding, new awareness, greater awareness, and lowered barriers. So, People First language radiates out into everything I've been talking about, but let's stop. If any of us have been talking with the nonsense that everyone has a disability, everybody does not have a disability. However, people with disabilities need to be recognized for accomplishing what they do against greater odds than people without disabilities face. It doesn't mean that people with disabilities are inspiring, but people with disabilities can do things that inspire people without disabilities because it demonstrates the strength of the human spirit. If you'd like to read more about these ideas, as I said, there is a blog on my new website, and every week I add something to it. So you can go back and read about schools and disabling conditions and the other things I've written about on a weekly basis. They usually appear on Wednesday. So I think that wraps it.
Mental health.
Mental health is our theme for this show, and I'm going to let Jeff start talking about that. And actually, we're going to continue the discussion into our next show, where we have a special guest that Jeff will also tell you a little bit about. So our theme, mental health awareness.
Mental health awareness. Mental Health Awareness Month, May, was established in 1949 because the feeling was, the understanding was, that we needed to sensitize the general population to reduce the stigma of mental health conditions. Now, mental health is the only disabling condition that has such a wide opening entering into that condition. All of us can deal with degrees of our own mental health. For example, as I was going blind actively, losing a great deal of vision in my early working years, I would come home every night and my young daughter Laura would say to me, "Daddy, what funny thing happened to you today?" Well, I would tell her, for example, well, today I was eating in a man's office who was the director of a hospital, and I was convincing him to put in a low vision clinic, and we had lunch served in his private office. So I was being very careful, and with my fork I felt the food. He said it was a sandwich. Okay, I felt that, and some chips and a piece of cantaloupe. So I got my spoon, and oh, so carefully, and the cantaloupe was a little on the unripe side, and I scooped out a piece of that cantaloupe while I was talking to him, and with great delicacy picked up the spoon and put it in my mouth. And I said to my daughter, that was the first time he had ever seen anybody eat a dill pickle with a spoon. Because, of course, I mistook a dill pickle by touch for a piece of cantaloupe. I guess an easy enough mistake to make. So my measure of my own mental health is how quickly can I turn something that's embarrassing or humiliating or difficult or evoking of shame or the other things that we do to ourselves in our own psychology. How quickly can I change that to humor? To me, that's my own mental health. But all of us live with the constant activity of our emotions and our thinking as it relates to the way we relate to other people and the world in general. And there might be something that makes us angry, a situation in the world, or maybe it's something that makes us extremely sad, or possibly it is an interaction with a loved one that makes us angry. And all of us have that full palette of emotions. How are we able to express those emotions in a positive way, or at least a way that is not destructive, to free ourselves from the emotion? What I try to do is, first of all, know what I'm feeling and what's the thought associated with it. I feel angry because, and then I feel it fully and release it. Feel it and express it and release it. You can express it to another human being. You can express it by just speaking it. You can express it by writing it down. You can express it if you're fortunate enough to be in therapy or counseling, or to a non-judgmental loved one, anyone in our life who can hear us. You know, we were talking about that, weren't we, honey, about just that dynamic about people being able to hear us without judging or saying things that counteract what we're trying to express.
Absolutely. And as we said, we're going to delve deeper into this next show. And I want you to share one of your, it's a song, you're going to share the lyrics. And tell us how you wrote the song and why you chose it to be this song today.
I'll do that. I was going to finally say on that last topic is there are several ways we can negate other people in conversation or when they're trying to express their feelings. We can say they're wrong. We can change the subject. We can interject our own feelings, or we can tell them that they're mistaken about what they're feeling. And in any of those ways, it discounts and blocks their ability to fully express and release their feeling. But all of us live with our own mental health, and mental health conditions that rise to the level of psychiatric disorders will be discussed next week when our guest is going to be Dr. Ronald Bassman, who is president of Mind Freedom. Executive Director of Mind Freedom, and also a clinical psychologist. Great friend, Dr. Ronald Bassman.
So before you share your lyrics, I want to read a quote.
Oh, this is good.
This is a quote from Woody Guthrie. He said, "Music is some kind of electricity. The best stuff that you can sing about is what you saw. And if you look hard enough, you can see plenty to sing about." And this is what I see Jeff doing all the time. He sings about what he observes in the world. And tell us about this song you chose. It's called Just a Bird.
Just a Bird was written actually the evening of the experience. I used to have the opportunity to go to New York City every quarter to be part of the American Foundation for the Blind's Journal of Visual Impairment and Blindness Advisory Committee. So it was a professional meeting, and we would go and stay in a wonderful hotel down in the theater district. And one evening, one of the other members of the committee and I were walking around, and we heard a piano playing. And I said, "Where's that piano music coming from?" And he said, "Well, I don't know. Let's find it." Well, there was an old man sitting playing an upright piano on a street corner by closed shops under a street lamp. And I listened to him and considered his situation. And then when he stopped playing, engaged him, spoke to him one-on-one, really connected with him. And what he said was so powerful, potent, and poetic. I wrote it down, and this is the song. I'm not playing it today because of the chronic pain in my hands. My hands weren't up to the difficult guitar part, so I just decided I'd just share the lyrics, which do make a reasonable poem.
Well, I always say, anybody that's listening to Jeff's music, the words are the powerful thing. So let's hear those words, Jeff.
'Twas near the lights of Broadway, across the street from Central Park, by a street lamp on a corner, by shops all closed and dark, an unlikely scene for any town, but no one stopped and stared. An old man played piano. All alone, I watched him there. He played there on the sidewalk. He did not notice me. His head was bowed with long gray hair, his music full and free, his melody beseeching. It echoed sad and strong, his hands so swift and gifted, the melody rolled on. The music then it climaxed, and sweetly it did end, this concerto on the sidewalk. I clapped. He looked up then. "You're a fine pianist," I told him. No, it's not that way. I'm just a bird. Music's the wind." He smiled at me to say, "I'm just a bird. Music's the wind. My spirit's flying free. I'm just a bird. Music's the wind that carries me. I came here from the desert, and it's there I'd rather be. Out there, you always feel the wind. Out there, my spirit's free. I've come back here, I'll go back there one day to die, but life has led me here." He stared past me with vacant eyes, now soft and moist with tears. "They want to capture me," he spoke, and a madness filled his eyes. "They want to put me on TV. They want to steal my flight. I'm just a bird. Music's the wind. My spirit's flying free. I'm just a bird. Music's the wind that carries me." The piano was an upright with carved and scrolled design. It stood atop a frame on wheels, and a chain hung down beside. I asked where it did come from, for there was no truck or storage near. He said, "I move it from the village. Each day I draw it here." "You drag it by yourself?" says I. No, it's not that way. I move it on the wings of love. It's here I need to play." His hands upon it lovingly, he stroked the sculpted dove. Old hands on old mahogany, a gentle act of love. I'm just a bird. Music's the wind. My spirit's flying free. I'm just a bird. Music's the wind that carries me. "The wind brought this today," he spoke. "I think you'll like it well." He played a deeply moving piece. The music rose and swelled. The crowds then from the theaters did stop, and some did stay. At first a few, and then 4 deep they stood to hear him play. And when that music ended, and applause did ring the air, yet still he stopped and spoke to me, as if they just weren't there. I thanked him then and turned to leave. Come back again, he said. I knew I'd never pass that way. Chance meetings always end. Now, some may think him crazy, that madness in his eyes, and some may never stop to hear his music as it flies. But his public song, his airborne gift, I carry it within. And sometimes when the night is full and still, I hear him in the wind. I'm just a bird, music's the wind, my spirit's flying free. I'm just a bird, music's the wind that carries me. Fly, fly away, fly, fly away, fly, fly. I wrote that in 1988. I used language in that song I would never use today, crazy and mad. But it described what I saw and what I felt and believed at the time. Today, I would certainly not write those lyrics. A couple years after I had seen that guy, I was talking to my mother about it. She was going to New York every year for the opera season. She had married a man that loved opera after my father's death, and he could afford to go on those vacations, so they went. And she came back from that vacation. We were talking about New York, and I was telling her that experience, and she said, you know, I know where that corner is, and I was in a hotel 2 blocks away from it, and I happened to be looking out my window, and I could see through 2 buildings down to the street below. We were on about the 10th floor, and I looked down, and I saw a man with long gray hair pushing a piano down the street, and he went past me, and my mother happened to see him in that second when he was within her view. So it proved to me that my acquaintance was still playing piano and still moving his piano on the wings of love from the village to across the street from Central Park.
Special guest, Marnette Hatchett.
So we're ready for the part of the show that we always have a special guest, and we're waiting for her to zoom in here. So while we're waiting, I have to share with our audience one of the most fun things being a partner with Jeff is I get to meet these fabulous friends that he has. And there's a saying, you can tell what a good person is, how good a person is by the number of friends they have. Let me tell you, Jeff has many, many friends and longtime friends. Our next guest, who is not quite here yet, Jeff, so I think we can start. Tell us how you met this person and a little bit about it.
Marnette Hatchett and I met in graduate school at the University of San Francisco. We would go there every 3 months for a 9-day intensive course, 12 hours of classes a day. And the notion was that for people who were rehabilitation administrators for many different types of rehab agencies, they needed a school program where they could go and get intensive training and then go back and apply it on the job. So Marnette was from Kansas, I was from Berkeley, and Marnette brought a joy and a life and a realness to our class that really was very refreshing. Marnette moved to various jobs in her field, and she became executive director of Meadowlark Homestead, a program which she'll share with us about. But as executive director, she hired me to come in and work for a week in a residency, bringing music and songwriting to the people in her program. And I played in many. Do I hear Marnette?
Yes. Hello, Jeff.
Well, I see her name. We don't see her beautiful face yet.
Marnette is on a rather slow internet connection, and her Zoom connection is spotty. So we will see and hear her momentarily.
Right. And while we're waiting, I got to meet Marnette, I think it was about 5 years ago. At that time, Jeff and I were living in Evergreen, Colorado. And as I said, these are people, his friends stay in touch with him for years. And Marnette was coming to Colorado to pursue a hobby that she has. She weaves and uses yarn for many creative projects. And so we arranged to meet her. And that's when I got to meet Marnette. And then we got to, a few years later, go to visit her in Kansas. And here she is!
Hooray! Marnette.
Hello.
Welcome,
I'm
Marnette.
so sorry about my slow internet connection.
No, it's the nature of this technology, but what an amazing thing to be able to do this program with us sitting in California and you in Kansas. Well, let's get right to it while our connection is good. Marnette, I wanted you to be on the show for two reasons. First of all, when the deinstitutionalization movement happened and state mental hospitals were closed, the promise was that there were going to be community alternatives created. And you developed one of those promises in Kansas, in Newton, Kansas. Tell us about it, would you?
Well, the program that we work with, Meadowlark Homestead, provided services for people over the age of 18 with very serious mental illness. And we had both vocational and residential services. We operated some shared living homes. We operated some apartments. And when I began working with the program, we had a 24-hour kind of residential service that then, as more opportunities arose, we helped people get into their own homes rather than live in more congregate kinds of settings. Our employment program was one of the principal supported employment programs where we assisted people to get jobs in the community, and it was just a wonderful adventure.
When we were in school together in graduate school, one of the things that we did was everything that we did, we had to focus on what we were going to do, what staff was going to do, and how it was going to affect people who benefited from our programs. I'm sure that you took that consciousness into your work, because I saw people who were recognized the value of the programs and I'm sure the changes that you brought about, especially as you moved people into their own homes, a very progressive way of thinking. Do you have a peak experience in that change, that in the changes you wrought in people's lives?
Well, there are a couple of factors. For one thing, I would say that medications for people with very serious mental illness improved very significantly, and I don't think that should be underestimated. When I began working in the field of mental health, the common knowledge was simply some people will just live in an institution all of their lives. They can't function in the community. And as we learned more and more about brain disorders and the fact that serious mental illness is a brain disorder, medications became better. And so people who had formerly really been just expected to not be able to live in the community were living in the community in their own homes. And it was a great thing to see. We had an approach where when we did planning, the individual who for whom the planning was done was central to that process, and they were the main decision makers about what did they want to accomplish and what were the things that were kind of missing in their lives. And then we tried to focus on what are the abilities that you bring to this, so that if you want to change things. One staff members, I just love her dearly, and her mantra was, if you keep on doing the same things you've always done, you'll get the same things you've always got. And so we attempted very sincerely to help people decide what were the changes they wanted to make in their lives.
Speaking of change, Marnette, one of the other reasons I wanted you to be here to talk to us, you've already shared some insights that I think many of us will, including me, are going to think about for a long time to come. But one of the things that's happened in your own life is you become a full-time caregiver, as your husband Ron has developed dementia. When we visited with you both on the road and when we were in your home, I've been struck by your resilience and your empathy and your connectedness to Ron. For people who have yet to experience the role of caregiver, what is it in your life that enables you to maintain resilience, that enables you to keep your vitality in your relationship as you care so lovingly to your husband?
Well, maybe first of all, acknowledging that some days it's not so loving, but mostly it is. Mostly it is the fact that I am so fortunate to have a stable family who love me and care for me, and for whom I love and care as well, and very, very dear friends. And those relationships are very much what sustains me. I appreciate them, and we have sort of an open table at our house. You know my friend Chris Bestfader, and she's here with me today as well. Friday nights we get together and we call it soup night, and it's kind of whoever can come comes, and we do those kinds of things. We go on trips together. It's planning things that sort of sustain the soul. I also do things that just give me pleasure. Listening to music, certainly one, and I love your music. And I weave and I spin and I knit quite prolifically. And so those are the kinds of things that keep me going.
You know, you've touched on so many things that all of us can apply, even if we don't have the richness to draw on, the richness of resources to draw on, but the community of family and friends. And when I was visiting with you, when I was working for you all those years ago, I think Ron told me that you lived within 2 miles of 13 family members, something like that. And that's the way it used to be for everybody. And now that's a very rare thing. But for the rest of us, friendships, connectedness through faith communities or 12-step programs, or the people we meet at the pool, or however it is that, or the pool hall, or the people that we connect with, that we establish communities of support with. And then, as you said, your personal hobbies, the things that give you such joy, your weaving. I mean, even your email handle is weave for, what is it?
Fun. Weave for fun.
Weave for fun. But not only do
Yes.
you weave, but you spin yarn, correct?
Yes.
On a spinning wheel.
Well, and yes. Or a drop spindle, a more primitive way of spinning. I guess one other thing I'd want to say about being a caregiver, and that is that I don't do that alone. My husband is a part of a program of all-inclusive care for the elderly, commonly known as a PACE program, and we don't have as many of them in the central part of the United States, but they're pretty prolific on both coasts. And these are programs that simply, as their name implies, provide all of the health care that a person needs. And in my case, that means that there are a couple of days a week that Ron goes to their center for care, to see his daughter, for showers, for socialization kinds of things. Then we have caregivers that come and assist me in the home. I have someone here 3 times a day that helps get Ron to his recliner from his bed and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
That is wonderful. I hope we'll be able to get references to put up on the website so people know how to tap into those resources. Thank you very much, Marnette. That's wonderful information.
Sure.
But Marnette, of course you don't do it alone, but a loving spouse or parent or child or sibling that is connected to that person in a primary way develops the rest of the resources around them. And if without someone like you as the hub, it isn't going to develop in a way to the person's best advantage. So I think you truly are the center of that, and you know it. What did you learn?
Thank you.
What did you learn as an administrator that you've applied in your role now as a loving family member and caregiver?
Keep just seeing good people around you.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things I always felt as a program director was that there were things I just couldn't do, and I needed to look for those kinds of talents in the people with whom I worked, and was fortunate enough to have just fabulous people that worked with me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that you also created programs that the sort of the reflected energy back to you as you saw success upon success, and of course the changes in medications have opened up incredible new horizons. My own brother, who had institutionalized mental illness, benefited dramatically from the designer drugs, but I had to advocate mightily for him to be able to receive the drugs that really helped him in a fantastic way. I remember he was on a new medication, and for the first time, we had a conversation where he questioned something I said. I mean, he reflected back to me in a way that he never had before. And you remember what a struggle that was.
Oh, every 3 months, Jeff would have to take steps to make sure that the medication would continue.
And Marnette, it's people like you that established the programs, that trained the people, that developed a community consciousness that now, as a caregiver, you're benefiting from. So I know that you'll never see all the connectivity of those relationships, but I believe that's true. What would you share with anyone who's listening to this, who might be in a caregiving role as a new responsibility, or is feeling the strain of that responsibility?
I think one of the biggest things is, if there is a support group, or if there are people that you can share your feelings with, that's a really critical kind of thing, because the isolation can just eat away at you. And so my friends and the people at the PACE program, they provide a lot of what I need to feel nourished and able to continue doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. I'm going to interrupt because I want, Marnette, are you going to show us some of your wonderful weaving that you've done? I want to see those.
Well, I showed this to you yesterday. I said I was knitting some Wonder Woman socks, and they're a little difficult to see, but they're just little a little pair of socks that I'm knitting, and then these are some of the napkins that I've woven. They're not fabulous. They're just I sort of describe myself as a recipe weaver. I like doing things that are functional, that I can give to people, that I can use myself. I don't do a lot of experimental kinds of things. Once in a while, I try a little bit of tapestry that's kind of fun and enjoyable to do. But mostly, I do the kind of things that are very usable.
That's great. That is so wonderful. Thank you for sharing all that.
Well, Marnette Hatchett, the
Yes.
Wonder Woman in her own account, a real champion for all of humanity who live with the difference of mental health disorders, mental health disabilities. We thank you, Marnette, for your service, and
Yes.
and thank you for being a model for the rest of us about being an effective caregiver.
And we
I appreciate the.
Thanks to Wi-Fi gods for letting you.
Yes, that's what I want to say. I appreciate not getting kicked off, because I was afraid that would happen.
Well, we hope to see you when we travel through Kansas, hopefully.
Oh, that would
Thanks
be
again,
just
Marnette.
fabulous. I can't imagine anything I would look forward to any less. That would be wonderful.
And Marnette, I
Okay.
hope that after the responsibility that you carried so nobly of being our guest, it won't dampen our friendship.
No, not at all. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Marnette.
All right, I'm leaving.
She's saying bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We're going to get ready for Instrument Corner.
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought that we were at that point, but
Yes, we are.
oh, we are.
We are at that point.
We're in Instrument Corner already. Okay. Today we're going to be talking about the harmonica. Now, depending on who you read, the harmonica was invented centuries ago in China, an instrument called the shang. It was a bamboo instrument, reed instrument, that was used to play music that became popular in Europe. And the shang was played in Europe for many centuries, apparently. However, the common harmonica that we know today was invented initially by a guy named Buschmann, a German, in the 1820s. There was a man named Hohner who happened to be in Indonesia, and he saw this instrument being played. I do not play this instrument. You probably couldn't tell that. Hohner heard that played, and he said, you know, I can improve on Bushman's harmonica. And before long, Hohner had invented a harmonica that really is very much like today's harmonica. This happens to be a Lee Oscar harmonica. For those of you who want to get into playing harmonica, the beauty of the Lee Oscar harmonica is that you can take it apart and replace the reed bed. Those, of course, are reeds vibrating. And if you're learning to play harmonica, don't play it too forcefully and don't bend the notes. Don't bend the notes too hard, or you can actually bend the reeds with your breath and then you get a note that's flat. So this is a standard little harmonica. It's called a marine band. I was going to put it in my pocket, but I don't have a pocket. Standard marine band size harmonica, and the marine band harmonica is the Hohner brand, but I prefer.
I'm going to hold your hand up a little bit so they can see.
Oh, pardon me,
Okay,
Lee Oscars. Now, harmonicas come in many different sizes. This is a little novelty harmonica that's often given to people as a gift. And you can play it, but it's not easy to play, and you can also play it with your tongue. This is often called, the harmonica is often called the French harp or the mouth organ, because it is quite like an organ, I guess, that you play with your mouth, I suppose. The French harp, you can figure out why that would be called that. Now, if you take two reed beds and tune them so they're slightly out of tune with each other, when you play it, you get that echoey sound, and this is called an echo harp. This one happens to be made by Yamaha. Now this is one that I find absolutely wonderful. It's a minor key harmonica, and it's also an echo harp. And when I first picked this up, I wrote that song, which is called Baton Rouge Kazatsky, because I was told by a friend who studies Russian folk dance that style of folk dance is called a Kazatsky. So I wrote it in Baton Rouge, and hence the name Baton Rouge Kazatsky. Now this
is my favorite.
is the big professional harmonica. It's the kind Stevie Wonder plays, and it's called a chromatic harmonica. You see the button on the side, and when you push that, it opens up a whole different reed bed that's half a step different. So it's, rather than playing the C, you'd be playing C sharp, or rather than playing B, you'd be playing C. And this, because you can change the note you're playing, you can get wonderful changes like you would find in jazz or classical music. For example, it's also got that great bass range. This has a 4.5 octave range, and it's just a wonderful harmonica, and as Christy said, her favorite, probably for that song. So the harmonica I've read several things about it. One says, easiest instrument to teach yourself to play. And the other is an instrument that you can teach yourself to play. It doesn't say easy. But because it's portable and because there's no music specifically written for the harmonica, yes, you can study music and learn that if you blow in or draw out, you get two different notes. You can possibly read the notes and play, as some professional harmonica players do. But for the rest of us, playing the harmonica requires a lot of memorization. So you just have to kinesthetically, or by body memory, this is also a minor key harmonica, a Lee Oscar harmonica. So harmonicas are great. They're wonderful instruments, and I learned to play as a kid when I was 16, following in the steps of Bob Dylan and many of the folk singers of the day, playing a harmonica and guitar at the same time. And this is a gift from Christy, a recent gift. It's the brand new harmonica brace, which is so wonderful because, number one, it can accept a big harmonica like this one, and you can, after adjusting its many, there we are. Although it does happen to slide out a little bit.
Oh,
but
dear.
So these harmonica braces, if you're interested in playing harmonica and piano, or harmonica and guitar, or banjo, or ukulele, or play harmonica while you're running your table saw, or making your souffle, you can do it hands-free. However, do not use your harmonica using power equipment. I was just kidding about that. So there you have the harmonica corner.
And you know what? It is over an hour. So there you have our show. We've got to get ready to close here.
We're wrapping. And next week, or in 2 weeks,
2 weeks,
again, we're going to have Dr. Ron Bassman as our guest. Please, if any of you are musically inclined, go to we'repeoplefirst.com, download the karaoke, and upload your MP4 of your inclusive family or community group or whomever. Sing We're People First. The last chorus, it's simple, easy. Please send it back to us. We want your music. And finally, mental health, of course, is something that all of us deal with every day, our own mental health. It doesn't mean that we have, when we're in a bad mood or down in the dumps, that we have a mental health disability. We don't. But all of us do address mental health. And in this time of COVID, as we come out of it, let's be conscious of the fact that all kids have really suffered, really had an awful lot of social isolation and, as we talked about last week, social death, which they now have to recover from as they re-enter the world. So for all of us, let's be gentle with each other, recognize that all of us are doing our best. And if we listen to each other and give each other our best, our openness, our empathy, and our understanding, we will bring to the world a great deal of peace, sweet peace.